We have finally reached week 1 of the 2019 college football season. It's been a long off season, and I'm looking forward to week 1. I'm hoping everyone else is as well. But first, let me address what a good couple of games. Not really just good, but they were fantastic week 0 games. Miami and Florida, Arizona and Hawaii, both games coming down to the wire, both intense, both having thrilling finishes. I couldn't think of a better way for the 150th college football season to get kicked off with having two games like that. Those were, without any question, the best week 0 games of all time. But unfortunately, we must put those fantastic week 0 games behind us and look forward to week 1. So the first matchup that I'm going to discuss today, the number 14 Utah Utes and the BYU Cougars. The Holy War. And this is a Thursday night game. And I think it's great to have these rivalry games to begin the season. I don't think this game is going to be exciting as Miami and Florida was. But I still think this will be a great rivalry game. Anything can happen when it's a rivalry game. But what I do think the difference in this game will be is Utah's experience, especially with their senior leadership, not only on the defensive line, but with their running game as well. The experience of Utah, I think, is going to be the difference in this matchup. I think Utah wins this one, and I think Utah is in the driver's seat to win the Pac-12. And I think a win like this, it would really be a huge confidence booster for this senior class to begin their senior season with a win over a rival like BYU. I think the Utes will take this one. Next are the number 19 Wisconsin Badgers versus the South Florida Bulls. Now, when I looked at this matchup in the offseason, I thought this could be a trap game for Wisconsin. Their quarterback, Alex Hornibrook, transferred to Florida State. So right now, there is a little bit of doubt at the quarterback position for Wisconsin. Jack Cohn or Graham Moretz. So this could be a rebuilding year for Wisconsin. It wouldn't surprise me if Wisconsin took a couple steps backwards this year. But I do also remember, you also have to remember as well, that the Badgers still have Jonathan Taylor at running back, the nation's leading rusher in 2018. And it wouldn't surprise me if Jonathan Taylor was the leading rusher in college football again this season. In fact, I'm hoping that Jonathan Taylor has even a better season than last year because I drafted him first overall in my college football fantasy league. Yes, that's a thing. But anyway, it wouldn't surprise me if South Florida made this game really close. But I think this is going to be a type of game where Wisconsin struggles a little bit, but I think they pull away in the fourth quarter. I think the Badgers win by 14 points. However, if South Florida won, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because, like I said, this is potentially a trap game for the Badgers. So now we're into some Saturday games. So we have now Duke and number 2 Alabama. There's really not much to discuss. Alabama's going to run all over Duke. So we're going to move on to South Carolina and North Carolina. And I know this isn't the most exciting matchup of the week, but there is a great storyline to it. This is the first head coaching game in Mack Brown's return to coaching college football. And ironically, the last time Mack Brown was making his coaching debut for North Carolina, it was against South Carolina as well. And I think there's a lot of pressure here. Well, some of these teams that we're going to preview, well, not really preview, but some of the matches we have coming up to predict, there is some pressure on some teams to get off to a good early start. And South Carolina is one of them because they have one of, if not the toughest, schedule in college football. But I think South Carolina opens up the season with a win. But South Carolina does have a grueling schedule coming up. Next we have Northwestern and number 25, Stanford. Stanford is a team that I feel like has some pressure to them this season. I said that Stanford could be a contender for the Pac-12. In fact, I think the four horsemen for the Pac-12 are Washington, Utah, Stanford, and Oregon. But Stanford, they have a grueling schedule coming up. They go on the road at USC on the road at UCF, and at home against Oregon. So Stanford has 4 tough games to begin the season. And Northwestern, I think, could surprise people as well. So last time these two teams played each other, Northwestern beat Stanford 16-6. But I think Stanford gets the Wildcats this time. Although Northwestern is not a team to underlook. They have Hunter Johnson starting at quarterback, the Clemson transfer. But I think the Stanford Cardinal win this one. Next, we have the Boise State Broncos and a Florida State Seminoles. Florida State, another team with some pressure. Second-year head coach Willie Taggart, I think, is on the hot seat. And I think if Florida State doesn't make a bowl game, I think Willie Taggart will be shown the door. However, I think Florida State wins this game against Boise State. Boise State has a new quarterback after Brett Rippon graduated. And I think Florida State, I think they're going to be improved this year. So I think the Seminoles, I think they beat Boise State in this matchup. Next we have Fresno State and USC. USC, another one of those teams that I think is facing a lot of pressure this year. Clay Helton is on the hot seat. And same thing with Florida State. If USC doesn't make a bowl game, I think Clay Helton will also be shown the door. So how I see this matchup, Fresno State is coming off an 11-win season last year, and USC is coming off an abysmal season. However, I think Fresno State lost too much of the talent that they had in that 11-win season last year, and USC is bringing back a decent amount of talent from last year's team. And with these first couple weeks of the season, it's kind of hard to figure out what to go off of, and you can only really go off last year. So I think USC beats Fresno State. So now we have a Sunday night game, the Houston Cougars and the number 4 ranked Oklahoma Sooners. Now Oklahoma's defense, it was abysmal last year. In fact, Oklahoma's defense has been abysmal for a long time now. And the last time Houston and Oklahoma played each other, Houston just completely blew out Oklahoma, and that was when Oklahoma had Baker Mayfield at quarterback. So it wouldn't surprise me if Houston actually won this game. In fact, I was very close to picking Houston to win this game, and the reason why is Oklahoma's defense has struggled for a long time now. And Houston, Derek King, the quarterback for Houston, I think he's going to be able to move the ball at will against this Oklahoma defense. And you have Jalen Hurts now at quarterback, the Alabama transfer, under center for the Sooners. And he's going to be under pressure every single week to put up 35, 40, 45 points per game every single week. He's going to be under pressure. I don't think Oklahoma makes the college football playoff this year. I think that Jalen Hurts is not going to be able to put up the production that Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray were able to put up. So I don't think Oklahoma makes the college football playoff. They could, but I just can't see it at this point. But things can change. Anyway, I am picking Oklahoma to win this game, but I think it's going to be a shootout. I think Oklahoma wins this game 45-42 in overtime. I think it's going to take overtime for them to finish Houston. We have now the Labor Day night game, the number 9 ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Louisville Cardinals. Notre Dame is fresh off a college football playoff appearance, and they looked abysmal against Clemson. Yes, they were able to move the ball a little bit early on in the game, but the further on that game went, the better Clemson became. And Notre Dame is going to have a serious challenge getting back to the college football playoff, because their schedule, I think, they have some tougher opponents this time around. They go on the road at Georgia in week 3 in Athens. So Notre Dame is going to be challenged this year more than I think they were last year. But I think this is a game that Notre Dame may end up playing close. Because Notre Dame, they had a lot of close calls last year in their college football playoff appearance run. Well, in their college football playoff run. So I think this could be another one. I can't see Notre Dame blowing out Louisville at the very moment. I think Notre Dame wins by maybe a solid 14-20, but I can't see Notre Dame just blowing out Louisville. But anything can happen in college football, so I'm going to say Notre Dame wins, but probably not by as much as what the experts think or what Vegas thinks. And finally, we have the game of the week, the number 11 Oregon Ducks and the number 16 Auburn Tigers. Now, this is going to be a classic. This is going to really be a huge marquee matchup for the college football playoff. And there is pressure on both of these teams to win on opening weekend for their respective conference, to not only compete for weeks to come, but also compete in the college football playoff race. However, I think to lose this game is not necessarily out of the college football playoff race, especially if it's only week 1 and if this game is a close one. Like if this was a double overtime epic game that resulted in probably a 27-24 like overtime game, I feel like to lose this game is not out of college football playoff contention. I know some people think so, but I think there's more pressure on Auburn to win this game than Oregon. Because with Auburn, I think Gus Malzahn is on the hot seat. I feel like that this game right here for Auburn is going to dictate how the season goes. If Auburn beats Oregon, they could be a contender for the SEC. If Auburn loses this game, then I feel like Auburn may end up finishing 6-6. Now, the Auburn Tigers, they announced that Bo Nix, the freshman, is going to be starting at quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. And he is the son of Patrick Nix. And the Oregon Ducks, you have experience and speed on your roster. You have Justin Herbert returning for his senior season, who probably would have been the number 1 overall pick in last April's NFL draft if he decided to declare for the draft. But Oregon, they have nearly their entire starting roster back from 2018. So Oregon is not only going to be a threat for the Pac-12, but probably a threat in the college football playoff. But when I look at this matchup, I see Oregon's speed versus Auburn's size in this matchup. Now, both of these teams, they have fantastic offensive lines. Auburn they have a size advantage in the defensive line against the Oregon O-line, I believe. But I think the matchup within the matchup is going to be the offensive lines versus the defensive lines. But in the end, though, I think this is going to be a very competitive game. I think it's going to be decided in the trenches. And I think that the Auburn Tigers will win by a score of 23-17. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. I feel like whoever loses this game is not going to be out of the college football playoff race. I think the winner of this game is going to be in a good position to be successful for the rest of the season. So those are my Week 1 college football predictions. Like, share, and subscribe. I will see you next time. Have a good one.